My name is Nathalia Bernal. I am from Bogota, Colombia. I am an international student here at Loras College. I'm a senior at the moment and I am triple majoring on international studies, business, and finance. The reality of race at Loras College. Um, I don't know, I guess the name entails that there's something missing or something to pay attention into how we are as an institution approaching the topic of race and inclusion and diversity at Loras. um, and I guess I don't know, from my own experience, coming from Colombia, we don't have this set standard of what is race, because historically we're a very mixed race, I guess you can say. So we don't have that we're white or black kind of reality like here in the United States we have. But so for me it's just how, I don't know, that name, how have we as an institution I don't know, worked with the difference of race at Loras. Just I coming from my country and all of this stuff, we don't have that set labels of who's white, who's black, and who's not one of those in a way, because we're very mixed. But it was until I came here to Loras that I started to, I don't know, think about which race I was, or which race I figured into. So I guess when I hear that name, that's what it comes to mind, how we as an institution we are approaching the topics of race, equality, diversity, and all the little things that it entails. It has impacted my sense of identity a lot. Of course, now, when I introduce myself, I, of course, say my name, but the first thing that comes to mind when people tell me about yourself is I am Colombian. That is something that I had never, I don't know. Of course, I identify myself as Colombian, but when I'm introducing myself to another person, that's not the first thing that before came to mind. Now, after 4 years, I introduce myself hello, my name is Nathalia Bernal, I'm from Bogota, Colombia, and then I continue on. So just taking that sense of I don't know, belonging to my own country has been very fundamental in how I identify myself. And also because of my accent and the way I speak and the way I use phrases and stuff, people give me weird looks if I don't explain where I'm from, because they immediately assume that of course I'm Latina, my face and my factions are very Latina, but they immediately assume that I'm Mexican, which I'm not, so I guess my sense of identity has been rooted in that, identify myself as Colombian, Latina, international student, not I was born here, because it's very different reality and stuff. But yeah, just identify myself from my ethnicity and my origins, but also appreciating that and appreciating and valuing that diversity that I bring into the conversation. That has been something that has really influenced and changed the way that I identify myself to others. I mean, right now, diversity and inclusion is very different from when I first got here to Loras in 2017. The only person that I knew at Loras that identified himself as Latino or had any kind of origins Latino-wise was Sergio Perez from the IPO that now is the CIA office. So that was the only encounter and connection in a way to my culture that I had at Loras for the first few years. And the idea of diversity and inclusion was not included at all. Of course, we have international students and stuff, but we did not do any activities related toward the Latino culture or geared towards those students that were not Americans. So that was at the beginning, in my first year and second year of Loras. But then in sophomore year, I think they started including activities like the Hispanic or Latinx Heritage Month in September. So little by little they started introducing these different aspects of the culture, but at the same time, I feel that some activities are very superficial to like what our culture is and like what we, live in a way, and like the reality of like our experience of like, I'm talking about international students, like our experience as international students here in the United States is very different. So like, of course, like those activities like are good and like they are, helpful because like they connect in one way or another like our background to like our experience at Loras, and also like it connects like the experience of other students who have not like met or like, I don't know, interacted with like diverse people or like people that come from like diverse backgrounds, like they, meet the middle ground in a sense. So one thing that I think that Loras should improve or like work on at least for this year and like hopefully for the following years to come. I don't know, looking back into my experience, like now I'm a senior and I have been here for 4 years. And like, yes, I have seen a lot of improvement. But something that I would, I don't know, recommend for Loras to do is to provide more aid. And I mean like more language aid base for students and like for families of the students that like do not speak English or like do not have English as their primary language. And I'm talking this like from my own personal experience. Like my family, every single time they receive an email from Loras, they call me and they're like, "Can you translate this, please?" Because like they do not have, like they're not bilingual like my parents at all, So I don't know. I'm thinking about like big events like commencement or like, I don't know, when like important emails go out like from Loras to like families, having those emails and like that information available in Spanish would be very, very helpful and like will create a lot of trust, and like I guess like communication, like more communication between like parents and like faculty and staff at Loras College that are like related towards like their, I don't know, daughters or like sons like that are Latino. Like I'm talking about like the Latino experience. Maybe like we have like more students that have like different languages, but like personally from Latino experience, like I would wish that like, for example, in my graduation we have, even like if it's like the book or like a translator, like speaking Spanish and like translating what's going on, because like I know for a fact my family is not gonna understand anything, and like I know other students that are like are Latino that their families do not speak English as well as we do, like they understand like the basics, and like for, I don't know, an event like as important as graduation, like my family is flying all the way from Colombia to here to see me graduate, and the fact that they might not be able to understand or like simply, yeah, understand what's going on or like simply, keep track of like whatever is happening is like very sad in a way for me, because they have worked so hard for me to be here, to not be able to live the full experience of my graduation. So that's something that I would like advise to Loras, like for Loras to do, like to create more aid in like different languages, like it's in Spanish, or like I know we have like French students, like creating like aid in French like in French, and like I know like if they ask the students, like students will be more than happy to help, but like I feel like that is something that Loras is missing a lot, creating just like ads and publicity and like I don't know, information like in Spanish for students, especially like if they want Loras to become like a more Latino campus, they need to first approach that and like, like create all the aids and like the webpage, for example, translate it all to Spanish, so like parents can like look up what their sons and daughters are like trying to learn and like what they're trying to do, And I'm just sharing this because like it's something that happens to me. Like my dad calls me every single time he receives an email from Loras, and he's like, "Hey, like can you like please translate this to me? What does this mean?" Or like when the pandemic hit, like my parents had no idea what was going on. They received the email, no idea what was going on. It was until like I called them and I told them like, "Hey, like you guys received this email, send it to me so I can like translate it to you so you know what's going on." because like I didn't even receive the email. Like it was like, so that I guess like that bridge of communication between like languages, I feel like it's needed, and it's something that would help Loras and like it's like the members of its community to feel like more welcomed and like more included in like the things that are going on campus and the things that might go on campus. So yeah, I feel that it is very important to understand and like at least listen to the realities and like the backgrounds of people, because of it is because of those backgrounds that people are the way they are right now. And like in my experience, like I come from a completely different country, like completely different culture, completely like different way of like living and being. And like coming here like into like this predominantly white like space was a very like hard cultural shock. And not because like I was not able to adapt to it, because like I was able to adapt, but like because the reactions that I got from people when I came into a space. So like one of the questions that like people ask me is like, oh, like when do you start like learning English? Like, like they do not expect my English to be like in the level that it is. Or like they do not expect me to like be able to like, I don't know, communicate and like give presentations or like, do certain things because of where I come from, and like it's just like that stereotype that we have of like where people come from, or like like being like the United States like a developed nation and like Colombia like a country in development, like so like that stereotype. So something that I would like people to understand out of it is like, I don't know, my culture is more than like what it is represented in Narcos. My culture is more than, I don't know, being able to speak two languages. My culture is more than like Shakira, Hips Don't Lie. We're more than that. Like, yes, we do know that song, but like we're more than that. And it's like, I don't know, just like my hope for people would be like to listen with open hearts and like just to have an open mind when you meet another person, because you don't know like that comment of like, oh my God, have you seen Narcos? Like in Netflix. Yeah, like that's Colombia, but that's not me. Like that's not my culture. That is not my history. Colombia is more than Narcos. So like I guess for me it's like a very sensible topic simply because like people or like yeah, people like classify Colombians in a very specific box. And like it's very hard to like move out of that box, especially like when you're first meeting another person, which is completely understandable. But it's very hard to move out from that box when it's something that is like Netflix. Like yeah, but that's not Colombia. Like that's a part of Colombia, yes, but Colombians are not drug dealers. Colombians are not that, So like, just I would invite people to, when they meet another person, like that is from Colombia at least, do not like the first thing to say to a Colombian, please do not be Pablo Escobar or like something related to Narcos, because it's very uncomfortable. And then the second thing is like just sit down and like have a conversation and like ask us about our culture and like learn from us about our culture and like our experience, because like I feel like that is the most valuable conversation you might have, and like the most insightful conversation you can have with another person if you're really trying to learn about them and like their culture, So just listen with open hearts and like sit down and like have a conversation. Like it doesn't have to be an uncomfortable conversation. You can ask me like, oh yeah, like when do you learn English? Instead of like asking me like, oh, I didn't know your like level was so good. Like it's a different ways that you phrase the question. Same answer, but like different way of phrasing the question. You have a very different reaction from the person that you're asking that. So, yeah. Creo que le hago una invitación a las personas a aprender un poquito más de Colombia, no de Netflix, sino más de las personas como yo que somos colombianos. Colombia es más que Narcos, Colombia es más que Pablo Escobar, Colombia es amor, Colombia es cultura, Colombia es alegría, Colombia son abrazos, Colombia es cariño. Y creo que esa es mi invitación, como si quieres aprender de mi cultura, pregúntame, así sea incómodo, pero cuando, pero no asumas que mi cultura es solamente narcos, porque no lo es. Mi cultura es mucho más que narcos. Esa es mi invitación, de sentarte a hablar con una persona de su cultura y a aprender de ellos y dejar atrás los estereotipos de narcos y la violencia y toda la parte no tan bonita de la historia de mi país.